The fundamental piece of technology that people use is a digital asset management system, so a DAM. And really the idea there is that sort of a database, if you will, of sort of all the creative pieces that are perhaps needed for a campaign or for your brand. And that can be great if it's well curated, if metadata, discipline is kept. It can be sometimes a little bit like the Wild West. If everybody dumps everything they think is valuable there, particularly multiple versions without cataloging it properly, it can actually be very daunting. So when somebody needs to find something, you kind of know the scenario. You know it's there somewhere, but people then get tempted. Well, I can't find it. I'll ask somebody to remake it. So it can actually be slightly a curse unless it's very carefully managed. And of course, if you are opening that up to sort of multiple countries, you're not sure they're all going to get, even a simple thing like a logo. Are they all going to get the same version of the logo at the same time? Are they going to realize it's the right logo? Have they got it in the right version? Is it vector if that's what they need? Have they accidentally got it as a bitmap format that's going to pixelate or something? And then it doesn't really give the center any vision of what's being done with those items unless you've got a separate process sort of on top of that. So it's a great place to store things. It's a great start. But unless, again, you're disciplined to say, when you produce something, can you put it back into the DAM? Perhaps you never get to see this thing until, it's out in the market. And then, of course, mistakes can be costly. It's perhaps too late to correct things in certain cases.
Yeah, I imagine that gets bad, beyond even a few people. That can get really ugly over time. There's a lot of hunting for what's right and what's wrong. Other agencies contributing, probably very difficult to keep track of.
Well, I think the problem is as well, if people are working with in-country agencies, it can be very difficult to get hold of the right file. So, for example, often it's not the right format. Let's go back to the logo example. So they need a vector format, but people only have it in a sort of perhaps a JPEG format. So what the production agencies tend to do is they will then hold on to once they get the file in the right format, they'll hold on to it. So what that means is when you run the next campaign, they're going to go, well, I've got that file already. And it took, maybe it took weeks to get it last time. So they'll just run with that. But of course, if there's been any changes or updates, they're not propagated through. So again, there's this illusion of control. There's this illusion that everybody's, pulling things from the center. Because of the actual difficulty of doing this, people, they're not cutting corners. Everybody's trying to, do the right thing. But, there's a disconnect now. So suddenly, problems can be introduced. And they're not visible, you can imagine even from the center, have you got the right file? Yes, you definitely got the right file, but it was the right file from 6 months ago or something.
So what else is used beyond the DAM? What else is used to kind of help make that work?
Okay, so the next stage is really perhaps to use a workflow tool. That can be, again, a great option. So then that does give the possibility, perhaps if you kind of set this up correctly, there's some approval steps from the center to go and approve the work that's being completed. So that's that's fantastic as long as people are disciplined again and they take the work that they've made externally and they load it into the system. That's all fine. The problem there tends to come from the fact that the centre can now be under a lot of pressure to check every single piece of work. And of course, the centre's ability to handle this is only based on the size of the team. So if it's a fairly small team who's stretched to start with, suddenly it becomes, they become the bottleneck because they can't go and check everything. And again, the same thing happens, everyone's got a deadline to hit. So if the deadline is going to be missed, perhaps you have to skirt around that process. So again, it's good as long as it can be kind of staffed properly and can keep up with the requests going through it. People doing this, the brand managers, they want to be the enablers of the brand. They don't really want to be the brand police. So suddenly all the responsibility on everything's right comes back to them. Well, that's not really what they wanted to do in the first place. So now they're having to check anything. And if anything goes wrong, well, they say, well, you could have checked it, because that's what workflow does. So definitely an improvement, but it potentially creates, another class of problem.
What do these brand teams want to be doing?
The ideal is they don't really want to be doing any of these things. They want to be kind of activating their brands. They want to be serving their organizations, generating more sales with correct campaigns. They're looking for things to be automated, but they're also concerned it's too difficult. Is it all too difficult for them to be able to do? Does it need specialization? Is it very, very expensive? So that's really the concern. We help organizations to explain that this is straightforward and there are better ways to do it, and it can leverage the tools that they have already. So, is there a way to make use of their DAM or their workflow, but in a more controlled way? That kind of puts the work in the right place so everything doesn't kind of end up bunching on the next bottleneck.